Well, brothers and sisters, a very, very blessed Epiphany to you all. Beautiful feast day of the church. The three kings come to offer the Lord gold, frankincense, and myrrh, which signify, of course, the Lord's identity. He is king, gold for a king, frankincense for a priest. Jesus Christ is our great high priest, and myrrh for one who will be buried. Centerpiece of the Lord's whole mission is to die for sinners. So we give thanks to God that these Gentiles, these magi, these men from the east, foreigners, reveal to us the fundamental identity of the Lord. He is king, he is priest, and he is our victim for sin. Let us kneel and pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Our Lady, seeking wisdom, pray for us. Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Well, brothers and sisters, just again a word of encouragement. Because our program is such as it is, that is, it's based around family life, sometimes one can examine kind of a curriculum and think, well, Father, why aren't we covering point 1 and point 2, and why aren't we being more systematic? The fact is that your children learn the faith best, most naturally, and frankly, how God intended it through living with you, through witnessing to your life with your own particular joys and struggles. It is through living with you in the seminary of your home that your child learns to live the faith. I'll be honest with you, and maybe I shouldn't say this because I'm the teacher today, at least for 20 minutes or so, but when I think back upon my time in catechism class in grade school, there ain't a lot of lessons that I remember, okay? Them's the facts. But what I do remember is the importance of Sunday Mass in my family's home. What I do remember is the great love for the poor that my parents had and have. What I do remember is that whenever they would fight, actually I take that back, my parents would oftentimes tell me, or my mom, John, we don't fight, we argue. We don't fight, we argue. They would always come back and they would forgive one another, and they would love one another in the midst of human frailty. So, don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged, and take your responsibility very seriously to live the faith in your own challenges and struggles. God has given you the grace to follow him and to be a witness to your family. So please take that seriously. Because of our limited time, I'd also like to spend some time with our second grade families to talk about First Confession next Saturday. I'm going to speed through very quickly the section on virtues. Our three topics this morning are virtues. They are the first 4 commandments and the idea of the domestic church. Got a lot of ground to cover in a limited time, so we've already talked quite a bit, I think, for a couple of months actually, I believe, on the virtues. We talked about the importance of the virtues for an understanding of the Christian way of life. A virtue, of course, is a habit. It's a habit that the will and the intellect form that allows it to do what it ought to do well. It's a habit. An image we used back in November, if I'm not mistaken, is the image, very classical image, used very often to describe virtues, of someone learning an instrument. You know, when we learn an instrument, whether it's the trumpet or the drums or the guitar, we got to practice. Yes, I'm talking about practice. We got to practice and practice and practice. And eventually, if one practices well and long enough, those exercises of practicing become natural. We don't even have to think about them. I learned this in my own life as a rather mediocre drummer, okay? You practice and you practice, and eventually some of the hand-eye coordination that was so laborious 2-3 years ago, now you literally could do in your sleep. Well, the virtues are like this in the moral life. We practice doing well. We practice doing good, rather. We practice doing good. so that doing good becomes easier and easier and easier. Now, it's never effortless. To be good because we are fallen requires some struggle. The Christian way of life is oftentimes described by the great saints as a battle not just against the devil, against the world, but against our own lazy selves, okay? We always or oftentimes seek the easy way out. But the Christian must be willing to engage in the battle of doing better, of loving better, of being more merciful, of denying ourselves for the poor and for the weak and for those who have less than we do. So virtues are habits that we develop, that we must deliberately and conscientiously work on. The Christian way of life calls us to perfection. And so throughout our life, we must be about the business of building up habits of life that help us love more easily. You as parents have a critical role to play in forming the habits of your young people, the virtues of your young people. Now, no pressure here, but I got to tell you, many struggles that adults face, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes could be handled much better, and we'd be equipped in a much more deep way if the habits and the virtues when one was a young person had been inculcated. The habit of hard work, the habit of telling the truth, knowing that there are consequences to bad behavior and not just false promises of what might happen. These things adults will have because they were given it as children. So, your role as teachers, as pedagogues of your children is incredibly important, not only in terms of living the faith, but in terms of being a happy, healthy human being. So that role is very, very important. The church has given us, following the kind of the vision of classical philosophy, 4 major virtues. We call them cardinal virtues that a lot of other habits can be placed underneath. And these 4 habits, these 4 virtues are found at the base of the cathedral's dome. I know we've talked about this before. They are prudence, they are fortitude, they are temperance, and they are justice. Prudence is an intellectual virtue. It is helping, when we're trying to inculcate a virtue in someone, helping them to know what to do, when to do it. Okay? Prudence is not delicate. Someone is very prudent, or they practice prudence. Sometimes we have this idea, we hear this phrase, and maybe it might mean that we're kind of, sheltered. We're very prudent. No, that's not the church's understanding of prudence. Prudence is all about knowing what we are made for and ordering our life towards that end. To be prudent for the Christian means I know that I am made for heaven, and everything in my life, my friendships, my recreation, my work, it's all got to be ordered to a particular end. Prudence is about seeing the end and ordering our actions to get there. It's what a boss does. It's what a manager does, at least what they're supposed to do. It's what a pastor should do. Here's what I want us to be. Here's how we're going to get there. Prudence is the virtue of seeing the end and ordering our actions and our life around that end. What is the end for the Christian? Getting to heaven. Justice, to give to the other what is their due. When a man is just, when a woman is just, they know what is due to the other person. Justice is all about giving to the other what is their due. Whether it's an authority figure, we give them respect, we give them a listening ear. Whether it is to a friend, we give them our time, we give them our presence. Whether it is to our children, we give them our presence again, we give them our love. We have all kinds of different relationships in our life, and justice is all about giving to the other person what is their due. We must grow in justice. There is fortitude, bravery, doing what we ought to do, even at great cost to ourselves. This is a critical part of growing up. I know what I'm supposed to do. It's going to be really painful, but I'm going to do it anyways. I'm going to make that phone call. I'm going to admit that I messed up. I'm going to be present when I would rather be somewhere else. These are all connected to fortitude. Certainly the most Prominent way we see fortitude is through the soldier who gives his life for his country, or through the martyr. He sacrifices himself for the sake of the church, for the sake of Jesus. But fortitude must also be fostered in little things. And then there's temperance, enjoying the good things of the world well. We're Catholics. We're not Christians who believe that good things in the world are bad, bad, bad. No. The Catholic is all about enjoying good things, beautiful things, tasty things, okay? We enjoy the gifts of God, but we must enjoy them well so that they do not reign over us. Temperance is all about the proper ordering and use of natural goods. So these four virtues are the virtues under which many other virtues are ordered, many other virtues are found. And as you seek to make your home and your family a place where virtues are taught, I urge you to think about these particular virtues. How can I inculcate in my children an awareness that their end, that is, the purpose of their life, is to get to heaven? How can I help my children be men and women of justice when they grow up, giving their employer a hard day's work, obeying and listening to their, not only their conscience, but their spouse? How can I help them be men and women of justice? How can I help them be men and women of bravery, who do what is right even when it is hard? Do I witness that with my life? And do I enjoy the things of the world well? Do I help them learn how to control themselves, how to enjoy beautiful, wonderful, attractive things, and not let those things control them? All right, I've already spent more time than I intended. Let's go on to the commandments, the four commandments. Part of course, living the Christian moral life, a critical part of it, is hearing the voice of God as to what He has told us to do and seeking to obey. And we do this again out of justice, because God has a right to our obedience. He has made us. He has given us everything that is good in our life. So it is right and just to listen to Him. Never mind the fact that we've been designed in a particular way to live in a particular way. What are the commandments? You shall have no false gods before me. I am the Lord your God. You shall not have strange or false gods before me. Commandment number 1. My dear brothers and sisters, we know that this commandment touches upon not just golden calves 3,000-4,000 years ago, okay? Maybe you got a golden calf in your house. I kind of doubt it. But what you might have is a big old TV that you gather around like the fireplace of old. What you might have is, particular vacations or websites. My precious. Maybe it's your phone or your tablet device. Or maybe it's more subtle. Maybe it's some sin that is very embarrassing, but is brought to the confessional every couple of weeks. Maybe it's a deep-seated pride. Maybe your false god is vanity, the opinions of other people. Boy, I really want other people to think well of me. All of these things can be false gods. We place other things before God. It is a perennial sin. My brothers and sisters, we have to pray for the grace and the strength to be aware, first of all, of what draws us away from God. And again, to examine the full scope of our life, not just stuff, material stuff, or objects in our home, but also what motivates us, what drives us in our life. Maybe it's fear. Again, maybe it's vanity. Maybe it's anger. All of these things can become gods, which replace the true and living God. We must place the Lord at the center and core of our life. How do we know if we've placed something ahead of God? Well, it seems to me that one discernment question is, am I doing something that I know that I ought not to do, and I know is causing God pain because I put more value on something or someone else more than God? I know that I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm too attached to it. I find it very difficult to give it up. a sign that you must pray to be liberated from that idol that has become a strange god ahead of the true and living God. What are the idols of your life? What are the idols within your own home? Number 2, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Now, my brothers and sisters, I think that this commandment goes far beyond simply saying the name of God irreverently, though it does touch upon that. You know, when we say, oh my God, or when we say the name of Jesus in a moment of anger or frustration or surprise, that is a sin. And we have to be very, very careful about using our speech to give glory to God. Brothers and sisters, how we speak manifests what is within. And perhaps we approach the true and living God without the due reverence that He is due. But I also think a part of this commandment of honoring the name of God is also being aware of what we attribute to God and about being self-righteous. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. We think that we've got God figured out. And so we say that God would want this, God would want that. And of course, we have the teachings of Holy Mother Church, the dogmas and doctrines that do reveal God's will. But my brothers and sisters, as the scriptures say, who made you the judge of your neighbor? As we look upon one another and we judge them, we place ourselves in the judgment seat of God. Rather than a place of mercy, rather than a place of love, we judge them. Now, we must acknowledge sin where there is sin. But for my money, this commandment, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, is also by assuming that we are on God's side, that we are in the right, and everybody else is in the wrong. No, this is a dangerous attitude. We must strive to do what we can to love and to be merciful. And by the way, this attitude afflicts both the left and the right. Just in case anybody's looking over at your right-wing uncle or your left-wing brother, you know, I hope you're listening to him. No, we all fall into this trap. All fall into the blindness of self-righteousness and take unto ourselves the authority of God. Number 3, remember to keep holy the Lord's Day. For the Christian, of course, this is Sunday. My brothers and sisters, how important this is. And I know that it can be very countercultural and it can be a real challenge. And I just urge you all, wherever you are in the practice of honoring Sunday, of coming to Mass on Sunday or Saturday night, wherever you are, I urge you to continue to strive to be faithful to Sunday Mass. It is so absolutely essential for the salvation of souls, for belonging to a community. And there are 1,000 different reasons why we say, okay, I can't go this weekend, but I'll go next. Brothers and sisters, that is not of God. God wants you here or, frankly, in another church where you feel comfortable and where you feel welcomed. Wherever it is, whether it's here at Transfiguration, whether it's another church, I urge you, make certain that if nothing else, you got Sunday Mass down. You get to Sunday Mass. Brothers and sisters, it's kind of astounding to me how many Christians kind of abandon this idea. It's always been the teaching of the church. We must get to Mass on Sunday, and it will always be. From the very beginning of the church's life, it marked who we are, our identity. They are the ones who gather on the day of the resurrection. So please, please, lead your family in getting to Mass. Be present. I remember growing up, how angry I would get that I couldn't go on overnights on Saturday night because my parents knew that I would be a complete sopping mess in the pew on Sunday morning. If I was hanging out with my brothers and sisters, by that I mean my classmates, they knew that on Sunday morning I'd be sleeping in the pew, and they didn't accept that. Now that drove me up the wall growing up, but it was a beautiful lesson. Whether or not it's right for your family, obviously you must make that choice. But it was a clear way that my parents indicated to me the grave importance of Sunday Mass. It's also very important to do what you can to make Sunday a day of rest for your family. Again, Easier said than done. You're probably thinking, yeah, Father, when you're done with your talk, you're going to go back and you're going to watch the football game. I got about 3 practices to take my kids to, and then I got to scramble to get ready for morning on Monday. So don't tell me about resting. I get it. I get it. But I do think that part of the reason why we are so frantic as a society, and indeed why there is so much depression, anxiety, disintegration of family life, because we don't make the sacrifices needed to make time together important. And it does require sacrifice. It does require a dying to self. It does require being different than other people. But it is worth it. It is worth it for the sanity of your family and for the salvation of your home. So I urge you, do what you can to make Sunday a time for getting together as family, having a meal together, perhaps some kind of charity together, some time of rest together. I urge you. Number 4, finally, honor your father and your mother. Honor your father and your mother. Now, this commandment, my dear brothers and sisters, goes beyond listening to our biological mother and father, though it touches upon that. It also touches upon the need to be respectful of legitimate authority. Legitimate authority. And there's many legitimate authorities in our life. The state, the city, the nation, our boss. We may not like these individuals, but we are bound to follow them to the degree that we can, provided, of course, it's not a sinful law that's been given or a sinful command. We are bound to respect authority. It's all part of the plan of Almighty God. We are ordered. We are an ordered people who long for direction. Again, God does not will tyrants. He doesn't will individuals who disrespect human dignity. But He does provide us lights in our life what to do. You want to know what your way to holiness is? Listen to your boss. Make, your widgets well. Do what you're commanded to do well. Strive to live your marriage vows well. Live the baptismal vows that you made when you presented your kid for baptism. Live that well. Follow the legitimate laws that have been given to us. I find it very difficult to keep the speed limit, okay? Them's the facts. But also the fact is that the state and the county and whoever makes the laws about the speed limit has a right to do that. And while, yes, it drives me up the wall sometimes, and it makes me confess a number of different sins, the fact is that we are obligated to follow the legitimate laws of the city and the state. Okay, I get it. But that's part of seeking to follow the narrow way as well. Not because we want to be do-gooders and people who are limited. No. Because faithfulness in small matters helps us to be faithful in great matters. And so, yes, I say it. To drive 55 miles an hour, to do that helps us say to our spouse in the middle of the night, honey, you stay here, I'll take care of little Tommy. It's connected. Our dying to self on the highway helps us to die to self in the home. It is connected. A little bit more closer to home, maybe, although that probably should be pretty close to home too. In your own family, young people, you have an obligation to listen to your parents, to obey them, to treat them with respect. And when you don't, to confess those sins. Parents, you also have an obligation to attend to your parents, to check in with them, to see how they are doing. Are you a good son or a daughter at age 40 or 50? Does your parent who longs to have a relationship with you, probably, do they know that you love them? Are you a presence in their life? All right. Brothers and sisters, just very briefly, our third topic, domestic church. Just a definition of terms here. This phrase, domestic church, indicates to us that the primary place of formation and catechetical education, the primary place where Jesus is encountered, is in fact within the domestic home, your home, with all of its ordinary stuff, with all of its struggles and joys. When we speak about the domestic church, it is the family. It's the place where we come together and we learn how to sacrifice, where we learn how to love, where we learn how to worship well and to place God at the center and core of our life. That is the role of the family. What a beautiful, demanding vocation you have been given, the domestic church, the place where we learn how to worship and how to love. That is the family. And that's what we seek to form and to encourage here at Transfiguration as part of our faith formation program.